Why do we even have user review scores? I feel like every time I browse scores on Metacritic or look at Steam reviews, I'm subject to some of the worst that humanity has to offer. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? My friend Justin, hi, Justin, likes to say that a low user score and a high critic score on Metacritic tells us a story about the game, that there's something going on with it that's important to discuss. I completely agree, but also disagree. Isn't it cool how we all contain multitudes? Walt Whitman. Lately, when there's a high disparity between critic scores and user scores, I feel like it's only ever for one reason, because the game went woke and people are mad or something. I feel like if there's that high disparity between critic scores and user scores, you can just look at the protagonist of the game and you know why people online are mad. But look at you, you're cool. You're not mad because of women and Star Wars or whatever, because that would be a very weird thing to be. So what, do we just completely ignore user review scores? I'm inclined to say yes if all they're gonna be is a platform for people to earnestly complain about how the feminists are taking over or whatever the fuck. But I'm being unfair, right? Sure, user review scores can be a forum for toxic gaming culture, but that's certainly not all they are. I have to have some sort of hope for humanity, and what better place to find it than in gamer forums? As I read more and more, I found something interesting. Time to make my mark on human history. Here's a sentence that's never been said before. User reviews on Steam contain multitudes. Or was that also Walt Whitman? So, like I said, I think it's really easy for a lot of people to write off the legitimacy of user review scores for video games. They're frequently in the news for being used as a way for a certain type of online person to be mad at the inclusion of women, LGBT+ people, and protagonists who aren't white. But that's not always the case. I kind of went into writing this video with that preconceived notion that all user reviews for video games are filled with hateful shit, but I was actually really surprised to find out just how wrong I am. I mean, there's plenty of hateful shit in there, don't get me wrong, but there are also a lot of really insightful conversations happening within the user reviews as well. In my deep dive into user reviews, I found a lot of different positive ways that they function. Let's start with the simple basics. Video games are just another product being sold online, and user reviews reflect that. If a game isn't good, it's nice to warn other people about it, the same way you would if you bought a low-quality chair from IKEA. Excuse me, a Solno Grytom from IKEA. In this regard, user reviews for games are extremely helpful. While a lot of professional game reviews do mention functionality, or what most people would refer to as performance, unless there's something in the game that's super noticeable, like with the rampant bugs in Star Wars Outlaws, it tends to be something of a footnote in professional written reviews. That's usually not the case with a lot of user reviews, however, since performance is a thing that a lot of mainstream gamers really care about. Indulge me in this tangent, I think it's relevant. As a professional reviewer myself, let me pull the curtain back just a little bit and give a major reason as to why there tends to be a difference in the way that user reviews talk about game performance and the way that professional reviews talk about it. The difference is that because professional reviewers are often playing a pre-release build of a game, it's not entirely reflective of what the game will be like when it launches. It's close, but publishers will frequently provide reviewers with a list of known bugs and issues that they're planning on fixing. So not only are you playing a game that's a fair amount buggier than what most people will experience, but because games get frequent patches in the months following launch, it's likely that a lot of the bugs you experience pre-release simply won't exist for everyone. There's a great review of Star Wars Jedi Survivor on Waypoint, RIP, by Patrick Klepek that talks about this exact dichotomy. In it, he writes,
"The problem with reviewing Star Wars Jedi Survivor is that a chunk of my experience feels less relevant now. I was cautious on progressing because I was warned that a major pre-release update could break my saves. It's a weird feeling, where the game I played and enjoyed had serious caveats that might no longer exist. In fact, what I can say with confidence is the review process for Survivor is, sadly, archetypical of modern games and the compromises they force on critics. And then by extension, you."
That last sentence there is actually a really insightful look into the relationship between critic reviews and user reviews. Because a lot of critic reviews don't spend much time touching on performance, since it's something that's kind of a gray area when playing a pre-release build of a game, it can feel like it's up to users to talk about. I don't think that's necessarily a great system, since it requires regular people to pay for a game and review it for others online before they know a ton of details about its performance, but it does cement user reviews as an important part of the industry for everyday consumers. To lay it out even clearer, if a game doesn't perform well, but none of the critics mention it, you know for a fact that it's going to be discussed in user reviews. If you're talking Steam reviews, you can also usually expect discussions about the hardware and if the hardware requirements listed for each game are suitable for optimal performance. For someone like me who almost exclusively plays games on console and doesn't really have a horse in the performance race, it's really easy to overlook the importance of what I might ignorantly call simple functionality reviews on Steam and Metacritic, when in actuality, they might be the deciding factor on if someone picks up a game or not any sort of review that I might write. So a high critic score for a game that has some pretty busted performance might result in a low audience score or unfavorable reviews on Steam. I think the story that tells is pretty indicative of the way that professional critics review games and the relationship between getting access to a game early and knowing for a fact how it runs. To be clear, this isn't a dig at professional reviewers, far from it. It's an acknowledgement of the difference between reviewing a game pre-release with nebulous promises of bug fixes and smoother frame rates and getting a copy after those things have been, or maybe haven't been, ironed out. So which one is more important? Well, neither, because they both serve different but necessary roles. Speaking of roles, however, another extremely important role that user reviews play in the gaming community at large is their status as a form of communication directly to game developers. In theory, this is a great thing. It means that devs are able to get direct feedback from people who've played the game. Community managers can search for positive and negative feedback in things like Steam reviews, and then share that with the rest of the team. Why is that text still up there? So here's the thing. Giving the gaming community a direct line to the people making games is a good idea in theory, but is often not super healthy in practice. Now, if you're watching this, you're cool, right? You understand the reasonable boundaries that should exist between players and developers. We both agree that no one should be harassing anyone. But that isn't always how all gaming communities see things. Unfortunately, this is where a lot of toxic gaming culture comes from. The idea that players are owed things from studios, and if they don't get what they want, they'll leave hundreds or even thousands of negative reviews online. If you've never heard of it, this is called review bombing. Review bombing has been around for a long time. Wikipedia says the first case was in 2008. Thanks, Wikipedia. No, I don't have $5. But the concepts surrounding review bombing go back even further. I'd argue that the fan reaction to Star Wars Episode 1: The Phantom Menace laid out a lot of the groundwork for video game fan culture that we're seeing today, with the way that gamers feel ownership over franchises that supersedes the ownership that the devs behind the franchise have. These days, people will review bomb games at the drop of a hat, which can make getting a legit understanding of audience reception to a game kind of tricky. That said, it's not always a bad thing. Now, there's a lot of nuance to this, so don't take me out of context, but again, in theory, a lot of negative reviews in a quick amount of time will tell a studio or publisher that there's some turmoil in their game's community and give them the opportunity to fix things. Helldivers 2, we're going to talk about Helldivers 2. A great recent example of the community-dev relationship I'm talking about here happened earlier this year when, after its launch, Sony announced that the PC version of Helldivers 2 was going to start requiring people to sign in to a PlayStation Network account to play the game. Not only is the idea of signing into a PSN account unappealing to a lot of PC players, but there are a lot of countries where PSN accounts just aren't available. So a good portion of the Helldivers 2 player base was going to lose access to the game. So as a way of speaking out against this, over 200,000 negative Steam reviews were left for Helldivers 2 as players complained about the PSN integration. Just 2 days later, Sony walked back their decision. This is a great showcase of the power of user reviews and a good example of the kinds of positive changes that can be made as a result. We've seen plenty of other movements like this try to ignite change in games. For example, Elden Ring dropped down to mixed Steam reviews after the launch of its recent DLC, with players airing their grievances about performance issues on PC and the game's high difficulty. I wonder if there's a video about that exact topic. No one knows. Anyway, regardless of what you think about Elden Ring's difficulty, it's clear that FromSoft has been listening to its fans, as it's issued several patches to help rebalance the game and also fix it on a technical level. We've also seen review bombing used as a way to push back against poor industry practices, like with the inclusion of microtransactions in full-priced games. When Dragon's Dogma 2 launched earlier this year and had what a lot of fans deemed a pay-to-win system, the game's Steam rating took a huge hit. While not every instance of review bombing results in a tangible change, like, for example, Capcom didn't remove the microtransactions from Dragon's Dogma 2 after the reviews went up, user reviews definitely have sway with studios, which means that it can be a tool to help push for change in the industry. It can get a little complicated, however, when a studio has a different vision for its game than its player base. Looking back to Helldivers 2, a lot of players are unhappy with the recent balance updates that Arrowhead Studios has been pushing. In the game's August update, Arrowhead nerfed a lot of the most popular weapons in the game as a way of pushing players out of using all the same types of builds. Fans haven't liked the changes to the game and have left thousands of negative reviews on Steam, hoping that Arrowhead will see them and course correct. This is where things start getting a little dicey when it comes to the ownership of a game. Who's right in this situation? The devs making the game with a specific vision, or the players who want the game to be their vision? I'm inclined to say it's the devs who should be the ones leading the charge, but if they make a game that no one likes anymore, then Helldivers 2 is going to be in some major trouble. User reviews give players a place to form a community around their taste, or in this case, distaste, for things in a game, and that can be extremely destructive for the game's community in extreme cases. Literally, as I was writing this video, Arrowhead released a statement about the recent updates, clarifying that the intention of the updates is to make the game fun, as if there were any reasonable doubts about that in the first place. While I appreciate the transparency from the studio on what it's planning on doing to better implement changes to the meta, I kind of feel like they shouldn't have to justify its changes to its player base. People should know that the studio is trying to make the game fun, and that they're working out the kinks the same way all multiplayer games do, through experimentation. Do you see how this gets complicated, and how the fact that a community built in Steam reviews might start to feel real toxic ownership over the direction of a game because, hey, it worked with the whole Helldivers PSN thing? Similarly, there are a number of people who've seen the fact that review bombing can be used to change things in-game and tried to push for their own less than savory changes. I'm not talking about the demands for rebalancing Helldivers 2 and their community-driven vision. I'm talking about more sinister changes, demands about removing woke garbage and DEI propaganda. These are the types of things that first come to mind for me when I start thinking about user reviews, and why I started out my user review journey here, thinking that maybe they should all be canned. As we've mentioned, in theory, giving the gaming community a direct line to the people making the games they like is a good idea, but it's too often used as a way to abuse the people making games and target anyone the mob doesn't see fit to be in video games. Here are some screenshots of recent user reviews for games like Flintlock: The Siege of Dawn, Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, and Concord, all games that feature women, black people, and LGBT+ characters. Some really heinous shit. There's not much to say here other than fuck this. It sucks that people are given the platform to behave in this way, and then also meet like-minded people for the saddest Discord calls of all time. It's hard to know what to do about this because of the way that the current gaming culture war is being weaponized against developers, but community-driven spaces like Metacritic user reviews and Steam reviews are still an important part of community building. I'd say it's on the platform holders to remove toxic conversations and review threads, but I just don't see that happening, since any attempt to shut these things down results in their leaders saying that they're being silenced for telling the truth. And then that creates even stronger community because now you've created a martyr, a Metacritic martyr. And Metacritic doesn't want that. It doesn't want to become involved in all of this, so it just lets people run wild for the most part. As I was researching this video, I spent a lot of time looking at the worst reviews for games, and I found something surprising. While there were plenty of the expected Reject Sweet Baby Inc. reviews for things like Suicide Squad, There were also a lot of profoundly negative reviews that fully did not mention any of the gamer culture war stuff. So why, then, without mentioning the woke mob or whatever, did these reviews give the game a thumbs down on Steam? Well, they actually just flat out didn't like the game and wrote honest reviews to say why exactly it didn't resonate with them. Shocking. I know. While browsing Steam reviews and Metacritic user reviews and research for this video, I came to find that while yes, there's plenty of hateful stuff in there, a large portion of negative reviews for a game are honestly and earnestly engaging with the thing the game is bringing to the table. Even the games where I thought we were going to only be getting gaming culture war reviews had plenty of earnest negative reviews, and I just think that's nice. Weirdly enough, it restored some faith in the gamers for me that I think I was starting to lose after months and months of harassment campaigns and complaints about a black dude being in Assassin's Creed. Before I get too misty-eyed thinking about this, a lot of the reviews left something to be desired. There were plenty of sentences like, "The gameplay was good," statements that mean absolutely nothing. But for me, it's the thought that counts with these types of reviews. I just like the idea that people want to talk about video games in a critical way, even if they're not particularly good at it. And listen, this isn't meant to be a jab at non-professional reviewers. I've read plenty of things people were paid to write and thought they were on the same level of "the gameplay was good," some of my own early reviews included.
Directed by Doom veteran Hugo Martin, the gameplay of Doom Eternal is fast and encourages the player to be aggressive in order to stay alive.
This was my second ever attempt at making a video about video games, and it's really sweet to watch now, knowing what my job is, knowing what we're doing right now. The reason user reviews for video games are so important is because of this right here. Because people want to engage with games, even if they're like me in my Doom Eternal review, a little awkward, a little rough around the edges, but honest. It's cool that people are talking about games and giving feedback on what works and what doesn't in Star Wars Outlaws or whatever. Spaces like this on the internet are hard to find and not perfect. See the fucking hate speech. But they're important for letting people openly discuss video games. I just wish that they maybe had more moderation. It's worth pointing out that there are more places online for people to give reviews of games than just Metacritic and Steam. Backlog.com, for example, is a great place for user reviews that, as far as I can tell, doesn't have a huge hate speech problem. It's akin to the film reviewing app Letterboxd, if that's your thing, but the discussions are a little limited. Because they aren't reviews at the point of purchase, I found a lot fewer discussions of hardware and overall performance. Also, because it's less mainstream than Steam and Metacritic, there are just fewer conversations happening there overall. That said, it's still a nice place to visit if you're looking for non-critic game reviews, which can be refreshing from time to time. A week ago, I was on board with completely wiping user review spaces off the internet. Harsh, I know. Having done no real research and not really thinking about them critically, I was willing to completely write them off as all being scummy places exclusively for complaining about woke garbage, but I was wrong. I mean, that stuff is still there, don't get me wrong, and it's still a huge problem, but that's not all they are, far from it. User reviews are actually a really important of a healthy games industry for all the reasons I've mentioned. They're not perfect by any stretch, and I'm not going to say or imply that a system that empowers and emboldens people to abuse and harass game devs and marginalized groups is inherently good, but I think it all comes back to that Walt Whitman quotation. Steam reviews contain multitudes. Like and subscribe.